Your personality, politicians and perspectives. I was sitting on the border down there waiting for you to tell me that. Anyway, here we are, Viewpoint. That well-known, well-renowned program. Listen to people from Broadwell, Burtonview, and Beeson. Those would be our audience this morning, and both of you pay attention out there because we got two fine gentlemen. First thing I want to do, Mr. Kirby. I want to introduce Lloyd Kirby here, guys. Don't want to forget him. He's important up here, folks. First thing I want to do, Lloyd, is pay a little attention to the folks who showed up at my house the other day with a nice Christmas basket. And on behalf of United Riders Motorcycle Club, Lincoln IGA, Charlie Lee, always coming to the front again, helping out on a community project. Lincoln Printers, Oasis Senior Center, and Shelter Insurance with Corey Leonard. I want to pay homage to these folks. They sent military baskets out to we old-timers out there at the Christian homes. Much appreciated. The gesture was much appreciated, and I sent each of them a note, and I hope they get it between now and sometime New Year's. In any event, Lloyd, let's get right down to serious business and introduce our guests this morning who've gotten out of bed at an early hour and decided they wouldn't go to Old Joe's early this morning. Spend some time with us here.
All right, very good. So today joining us from the Marine Corps League are Bill Dennis and Jim Harnacke. So, gentlemen, thank you for being with us.
Yes, guys, we appreciate your rising to the occasion. As Marine Corps League guy does all the time. Just may I go back just a second to the Marine Corps League and where I live at the Christian Village. When Gene and I first moved in out there some time ago, I decided that we ought to have flags. And one day I went into the Walmart store out there and I asked for the manager, introduced myself, and told him my mission. And the next thing I know, we got flags for every duplex and a couple of big 20-footers out there, which Walmart donated to us. And so you never get me to say a bad thing about Walmart at all. But to the point at hand, Marine Corps League showed up en masse. That means with all of them, Lloyd.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Anyway, Marine Corps League, seriously. Marine Corps League showed up and put all those flags up. And I think we ought to give them a big round of applause. Both of you folks out there, take your step away from your radio and give them a big round of applause. That's a nice thing they did. And further, if there's a flag that has a problem, it's down, they'll come out and take care of us. There's something unique about the Marine Corps League. We Air Corps guys didn't have that esprit de corps that the Marine Corps League has. I think that's indoctrinated from the day they put the first uniform on, their first day of basic training. And they knew they were going to be something special. And by Jove, they've proved that to be the case down through the history. So thank you, Marine Corps League, very much. We appreciate your presence and coming to my rescue this morning when I forgot that we didn't have a guest. Go ahead, Lloyd.
Well, as you mentioned, they helped out with the flag project there at your humble abode, and you guys are always involved, it seems like, in different community projects. I was looking online and I saw the article last time we had a group of you here. You were on your way, I believe, to the airport to build the accessibility ramp.
That's correct. We did that a month ago, and it worked out quite well.
Yeah, I saw that you were recognized at one of their board meetings, and that project got underway and finished. And
we wanted to work very hard to make that accessible to all people, because that's an interesting thing that we have here in Logan County. That is quite a museum.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone that hasn't been out there, even hasn't been out there in a while, to go out there and see that. There's a lot of local military history out there. They have a lot of scale models and actual military gear for display in there that you'll never see anywhere else. So, and they were kind enough to make a donation back to our league to put back in our account to help with other projects as well. So,
well, that's kind of the way it's supposed to work, isn't it, gentlemen? I scratch your back and you help scratch mine.
Well, I can tell you, Bill, this community and people outside this community have been been great benefactors. They've been very generous with us, and we're able to keep this thing going, particularly in the medical equipment and mobility equipment portion of it. We've had over 300 contacts so far this year, not all of which we've acted on, but we certainly, I'd say 90% of them we have. And we have a lot of equipment in the field, and we're blessed that people are continuing to support us and to give us equipment to issue.
Yeah, I want to touch upon that just a minute, Bill. But first and foremost, I want to pay obeisance to our sponsors. Usually it's about 9 o'clock the time I woke up and forgot the sponsors. And today we're going to do it different. We're going to play it by the book today. Go right ahead, Mr. Ash. Right back live in the studios here this morning. I had to wait to get the signal from Mr. Ash because no more small talk. Guest this morning, Marine Corps Representatives Bill Dennis and Jim Harnacke. Been kind enough to spend a little time with us this morning. And I think it's appropriate here as we go start into our holiday season. There are a lot of small things done and a lot of great things done on behalf of individuals and or families by our Marine Corps League. As I indicated earlier, you take a young man and you come bring him off the street and put him in basic training and bark at him and make him feel like he's not much of a person, and they indoctrinate him. And that's why the Marine Corps League is kind of special. We don't have an Air Corps League, but seriously, you men and your confreres do a lot for us here in the community, and I think the community ought to be aware of the fact the Marine Corps League is important to us. We have our VFW post, which is a wonderful thing, Veterans of Foreign War. And of course, I was indoctrinated into the American Legion Post 263 in the largest class ever indoctrinated in the American Legion. It was held in the gymnasium at the state school. Oh, wow. And the class was in honor of Dr. W.W. Fox, who was administrator of the state school at the time. Yep. And there were several hundred of us at one time. This was in the spring of 46. Wow. We all come home from the war at that time. And they had a huge class. And so veterans are important to the thread of our community. Mr. Kirby, I'm talking too much because I'll have to pay you more if I don't shut up.
That's fine. Your name's on the marquee anyway, so you get top billing. So it was kind of interesting, though, how that we were talking about the accessibility ramp out at the airport and the Heritage in Flight Museum. It's kind of interesting how that came about. Originally, wasn't the ramp, the materials for the ramp, weren't those supposed to be used for an individual in the community?
They were, and as it turned out, that individual passed away, and that material became available. And because that would be a semi-permanent installation, that equipment was not compatible with some of the other ramp material we had. So it was a good place to put it. Mm-hmm. It'll be there for our lifetime, certainly. And
that was actually some materials that came from the bleachers at the high school, wasn't it?
Part of it was, yes. We
I had an alert member, Owen Eaton, sent me a message one afternoon, and I was working. Hey, they're tearing the bleachers down at the high school. Maybe we could get some of that and use it for something later. So a couple other members got together. They went over there and started taking it before they crunched it up and threw it on the trucks and put it in the storage facility. Next thing you know, the airport's getting a new ramp with a big turnaround deck, elevated deck for the just. So if you're ever out there and you see that and you recognize it, it came from the football field at the high school. So.
Yeah, a lot of people sat on that stuff.
Yes, right. Yeah.
We were welcomed by the high school for the first 20 minutes. And then the superintendent showed up.
Chased us off. But,
well, no, they asked us to stop until we could prove our insurance, which I was able to do that. We had a inland marine policy in force, so it worked out well. But we did. We repurposed that equipment, and we still have material available.
Which brings me to another point, Mr. Dennis. You're involved in, maybe more than just Bill Dennis is involved, in wheelchairs for people who are in need.
Well, again, through the Marine Corps League, we provide mobility equipment, and that includes manual wheelchairs, specialty wheelchairs when required, and power chairs. One of the big things we're beginning to see and have need for are lift chairs, because as people become more dependent on equipment, getting up and down out of a regular recliner becomes a little more challenging. So we're providing those. We have several of those in the community. We have equipment as far west as Iowa and as far east as Virginia. So our outreach is interesting through one Marine Corps League or the FW post. The word is spread. So we're very fortunate we were able to do that.
Jim, I have to mention your confreres appearance each Tuesday morning with the old boys at the coffee hour at the Christian Village. The old guys get to run and lie to one another every Tuesday morning about 10 o'clock. And there's a guy shows up all the time, and he's got a little kit.
Yeah.
And
I didn't hear about that until I was actually there present to experience that. And I have to say that this medical program has grown way beyond what we envision as a league. And as Commandant of the Marine Corps League, if I had a Sergeant Major, it's this man sitting right here next to me, Sergeant Major Bill Dennis. I mean, if I had a man that I could call my Sergeant Major, who if something needs done with this medical deal, he recognizes it, he'll call me, give me a heads up on it and say, are you on board with this? And naturally, it's always on the level. It's always exactly what I envision. I mean, we think as one, but Bill is the one that's responsible for organizing this. And we've got a retired engineer from Hershey's Chocolate, 36 years, Mike Downing, Owen Eaton, excellent electrician. And then we've got Bill Stopper, another retired member. I'm the only one who wasn't retired. But yeah, and Gene Hickey, of course. We get into Gene. Can't leave Gene out. Everybody knows Gene. But a great crew of people and others that pitch in and help now and then. I've been able to go a few times to see exactly what's going on, and I'm going to be retired before long. As well as be able to get on the cruise. So health problems the last couple of years, and I actually am a beneficiary of our program. I had to have a knee joint removed that got infected in late 2021, and I was without a knee joint for 6 months. I finally got the knee put back in May 4th of this year, and they were on the spot. They had me a ramp. Came and built the ramp the same day they found out they were going to let me go home to the hospital. I had a wheelchair waiting. I had a walker waiting. I had a lift chair, a brand new lift chair moved in. When I got home and walked in, I had everything I needed, and I didn't. They didn't do that for me because as a special case because of who I am. They did that because that's the way they do it consistently across the board for everyone that asks. So I've got to give those guys credit. They're out in all weather, taking ramps down, putting ramps up, and doing extra things like repairing a flagpole. There's so much that they do, and every project is different. So, they usually have somebody recon it, go take a look at it and see exactly what they're going to need, the parts. And Bill's, the storage facility is Bill's old business out there, the Lincoln Auto Parts. But don't call it a junkyard. It was a recycling center. Learned that the hard way years ago. But it's turned into a great program, many beneficiaries and many to come.
Well, lots of little things done that add up to one really big thing for the community.
Yes.
Now I have referred to Mr. Dennis showing up at the Tuesday morning coffee soirees with a little box. Bill shines the shoes for the guys there.
Yes.
No, Bill, I have to correct you. I don't shine. I polish.
Polish. Oh, well, see, I've been...
If I were to shine them...
Mark that down in your library, folks, that you heard that I made a mistake here this morning. Mr. Dennis polishes the shoes of the men there, all of whom show up, and he insists they take their shoes off and polishes. Did a great job. Spit polish, the whole 9 yards, and then they help the boys get their shoes back on, which is a good thing, because if I had to take mine off there, I wouldn't get it back on. So, I kind of make light of that, but that's a little thing. Mm-hmm. But it's an important little thing. It's a gesture.
Yes, it is.
And
well, Bill, I have to add that you gave me my last shoe shine box.
I carried that throughout Europe, believe it or not, in the bottom of my duffel bag. Seriously.
The one that was issued to me years and years ago finally failed miserably, fell apart. Well, Mr. Gossett came to my rescue and gave me his.
The timing was everything.
It sure was. It sure was.
We were downsizing and getting rid of a shoebox. was probably a pretty easy thing to do. Jim, as Commandant, you get a lot of requests for this or that. People aren't aware of help that's available
And
sometimes.
that's exactly right. I have people tell us we're the best kept secret, although we've tried not to keep it a secret. We get great coverage from the newspapers and the online Lincoln Daily News, New Herald. We get great coverage from them and exposure from them. But there are still people out there, they'll say, well, we didn't know you guys did that. And I'm flabbergasted at that because there's so much information out there. And I've got to mention Dan Benedict up at the Veterans Commission. Bill and I have both been on that board from the start. Dan is a good advocate. He spreads the word as much as he possibly can because he sees the people with the need. But we're probably, I believe it's true, we're the best kept secret around, and we're always trying to get the word out, and this certainly helps. We really appreciate the exposure here. But if there's somebody out there that needs something, contact us or go see Dan Benedict if you're not sure how to get a hold of us. I know Bill's got cards that he hands out, but Dan has the first-hand information, and Dan's right there in the corner of the Logan building there on, can't remember what street that is. I'm a farm boy.
That's McLean and Pekin Street.
Yes, sir. McLean and Pekin, right there by the Christian church.
You thought I was just another pretty face.
And you can't miss Dan's office, the big decals on the window. There's a handicap parking space right in front of it that you can use if you need that. But Dan's got all the information. He can send you our way, or anyone who we've helped could send you our way.
And again, this service is offered to all veterans, their spouses,
Yes.
and family members. I have gone back as far as the Civil War to find a veteran.
In order to help someone.
So
Yeah.
it's unlikely that we'd not be able to help. We do require that there be an honorable discharge. Beyond that, we're certainly...
Well, I got by that.
And we've received a district, a state, and a national award from the Marine Corps League for this program.
For that service.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, it's important. I think it's important for the members of our community to know what's available out there. For instance, you have the Honor Guard today has a funeral. I'd like to turn up the heat a little bit for you. Archburg Cemetery is not a warm place to be at this time of the year. But in the case of somebody who's deceased, the family members may not know what's available to them. In this case, the American Legion Post 263 is available there, and they're Johnny on the spot and Jane on the spot. We have some folks that are also members of the American Legion who are the distaff side. It's nice to know those activities are available.
Also, Bill, the Marine Corps League has, over the past 3 or 4 years, has provided flag cases for deceased veterans. To store the casket flags that are available are provided for the deceased, and that's a program that's been well accepted.
Well, any of us who are on the cusp there, and I'm speaking with yours truly, tomorrow may be the day. I'm trying to put it off until the weather's nice because I don't want them to stand around in the cemetery when it's doggone cold. So those of you who are on that list, be a little considerate and try not to pass away until the weather's warm.
Well, I can assure you, Mr. Gossett, when the time comes, and I hope it's a long time from now, you'll have a full kit of Marines there on your day. I can assure you of that.
And they'll say to themselves, oh, hell, he was just an old Air Corps guy. What's all this about?
And I want to throw this out there on that. We have people ask all the time, ask me, is this just for Marines? Do you just help Marines? No. We help all military people. Anybody that needs it, we help them. It's not just Marines.
Well, it's kind of a maudlin subject, but address it, here it is. A man's final hours are just that. And the dignity that a veteran receives with the final rites, really appropriate. And I think it's a good crutch for a family who might be grieving a little bit. Particularly the presentation of the flag. And I've mentioned this before on air. You've got a guy from the Legion who does an excellent job of presenting the flag to the family. And
That's
I think
Bob Sullivan.
Bob Sullivan
Yeah,
does a nice
Mr.
job with
Sullivan does
that.
excellent work.
He does
Yeah.
it directly, and it's an important job to him. It's not just another job.
No, it's not. It's
You can tell he delivers it with some feeling.
A good example of that is one of our Marines, Gossett, passed away last spring. And I was without a knee joint at the time in a wheelchair. And as one of our brothers, we insisted that we do the flag presentation, and I wanted to read the final salute that the flag, they read during the flag polling and presentation. Bob told me, and Bob's a good friend of mine, good man, he actually told me when we got down to Camp Butler that morning, he hands me this sheet. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. You know, I don't know it for word. And Bob goes, well, I do. And you should learn it word for word. And I mean, he meant it as
Yeah, he
you know, because you don't know how to take Bob.
It's an important job to him.
And that right there told me that what he does is most important to him.
Yeah, he
knew
takes that
word,
seriously.
Word for word, yep.
We forgive him for being an Army guy. He is a good guy.
Yes, he is.
Let's mention Camp Butler just a minute, gentlemen. Oh, by the way, 648-5510. Our guest this morning, Jim Harnacke and Bill Dennis, members of they're the kind of the backbone of the Marine Corps League here, and it's very important membership in our community here. 648-5510. Somebody may have a question about service veteran. Feel free to call in and be real nice to them, because they're like I am. They're getting up in age, so you have to treat them with a lot of respect. Billy, do you get any unusual calls for wheelchairs and so forth that are difficult to, orders that are kind of difficult to fill?
We've had several people who are morbidly obese. We had one man who was 625 pounds. And trying to find a wheelchair for him that was acceptable and would work was difficult. I finally located one that was big enough and had a 700-pound weight rating,
My word.
but would not fit down his ramp. So I had to take the devices off the wheels that you use to push yourself to make it clear, and we were able to overcome that. But there are some things that are challenging. I think bathing is another thing we have to be concerned about, making sure people are safe and not a fall risk when they attempt to bathe. We have that equipment. We have shower chairs. I did not know what a Hoyer was before I got involved in this thing. And all I thought they were was a good tool to change tires on a big truck. But we've been able to place a lot of those in homes, and I learned very quickly a Hoyer without brakes is a big danger. And there were several of those out in the community that we replaced with ones with brakes where they could be held firm in place. I did not know what a sit-to-stand was. And through the years, we've become a little more educated on what this equipment is and what it does, and its application. Walkers, we have a tremendous selection of walkers, both wheeled and non-wheeled. I have a stand-up walker, which is unusual. And a lot of this stuff is donated by veterans who no longer need it. Some of them, of course, have passed away. Others have recovered to the point where they don't need this equipment, and they were able to give it to us. The VA will not take it back. So the options are put it in the trash, which we just hope that never happens, or to give it to somebody like us where we can repurpose the stuff and put it back.
You know, you mentioned the Veterans Administration. I've heard people complain about this or that. Most of them are minuscule things that really don't account for much. But I've never had anything but a good experience with the Veterans Administration. And I've been to 3 of them. I've been to Springfield, Peoria, and Danville. And I've just had nothing but good experiences with them. For instance, a little thing, like my prescriptions. I run out, I pick up the phone call, and in a week's time, there's a prescription refilled. It's just seamless. And so, by the way, Lloyd, this is a period of giving. This is a season of giving now. And somebody may be kind of struck to, what am I going to do to help somebody? It would be appropriate to mention that Marine Corps League might be a good place to drop a Christmas check. And I'll give you guys the address where they might. They can always leave it at the American Legion. It's going to find its way to you. But give us a mailing address for somebody who might want to check.
We are actually headquartered in the VFW building. We have our own room downstairs, a couple of rooms downstairs. We headquartered there when we first started the league a little over 10 years ago. Simply because there was the room there in the VFW with declining membership and the building needing some help. We just decided that we'd headquarter there. And the commander at that time, Michelle Ramlow, retired Navy chief, 24 years, was actually my girlfriend and still is, which we'll talk,
Good taste.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, let me tell you something. She keeps this Marine on his toes. My father was a Navy man, and they kind of gang up on me sometimes. But we'd headquartered there. We did a bunch of work on the building. We helped them put a new kitchen in. I mean, I'm an electrician. Bill's ace mechanic, among many other things. We got several other guys, Mike Down, engineer. So we did a bunch of work in the building, got the building up in shape so they could get more rentals, completely, nearly rewired the upstairs to make it safe. So we headquartered in there, and that address is 915 5th Street, Lincoln.
915 5th Street.
Yes, sir. And you can send it to that address, care of Marine Corps League, and it'll get right to us.
And we are 501c3.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So it is deductible.
Yes, sir.
So you might want to think about that, folks. You know, Aunt Bessie and Uncle George are gone, and you don't have anybody to leave your money to. Marine Corps League, right? 915 5th Street.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And we have several different funds that we keep. We keep a general fund for our operating expenses that we do with our roadside cafe and our roadside chow hall in the summertime. How we make our money. Then we've got a separate account called the Marine Rose account, which is our equivalent of the Poppy, that we place money in to help veterans. And then we've got another side account that's kept on the ledger for just the medical program. It's grown so much, and I felt like it was important to keep the donations from folks out of the general fund, out of the Rose Fund, and in the fund for the medical equipment. So you can rest assured that any donation you make to the medical program or to the program that Bill runs for us, that's what it's going to go for.
You know, you mentioned poppies. I remember as a kid in school before World War II, after the course the completion of World War I, and that was a little fundraiser called Poppy Day, and of course it was about the poppies in Flanders Field, which is a great poem.
Signifies, right?
And I'm not sure I could. I'm not going to try to recite that now, Lloyd. I'll have to go home and get my book out. But seriously, down through the years, been a lot of need and a lot of need fulfilled by the veterans themselves, doing things for themselves, as opposed to with a handout.
That's right.
So we've talked quite a bit about the medical program and the ramps and the things like that. What other kinds of services or things do you do for folks in addition to that?
Well, we've been asked to help people move. And recognizing that our membership, I think the mean age is about 67.
Yeah.
We're a little slow, but we were able to get it done. And that's not something we aspire to do, but anytime people needs help, we've helped people financially. You know, if a Marine came through Lincoln and he was in trouble, he would have a place to go.
Yeah, we've helped with that.
And I can assure you that individual Marines may not get along, but if you challenge them, all of a sudden they become the best of friends.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way it works, and it works that way all the way across the United States. That's how it works.
Well, as I indicated earlier this morning, there's something special about the esprit de corps of Marines. And the Marine Corps League kind of stands alone on its own under that special title, esprit de corps. As I say, infantry guys or Air Corps guys or Navy guys, they got their basic, and then they went on to various schools and mechanical schools and so forth. There's something about the way you guys unite. Sound like somebody melted cheese over all of you.
I have people ask me all the time, You know, I'm driving down the interstate or I'm driving around in town and I'll see flags, I'll see American flags. Now and then I'll see a Navy flag, but I see Marine Corps flags all over the place in front of these houses. I see stickers on the back of bumpers, you know, Marine Corps stickers. You know, I see Army and Navy now and then, and the Coast Guard now and then too, and the Air Force. But it's and I'm like, well, Marines put their name on everything that they own. That's one thing you're taught in boot camp. Your name's stamped on every piece of gear you own, and you're responsible for that. And that, just like much of the stuff that they teach us, it carries over into your later life. You're never out of the service. Like the old saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. That's always a brother. And, you know, I'll be walking into Cracker Barrel and, you know, Cupcake, Iowa, and have somebody say Semper Fi when they see the tag on my jacket, you know, and shake hands, you know, and then you start talking about, you know, where you were and things. It's just, from the time you get to boot camp, they take everything away from you. They shave your head. They make you wear the top button. They make you leave your sleeves down and buttoned. Your trousers are unbloused out of your boots. In other words, they're not rolled up and tucked into your boots. It's all taken away from you. And over that 13 weeks of boot camp, you go through different phases where you earn the right to get those things given back to you. You earn the right to grow the 3/4 to 1 inch of hair on top of your head called a high and tight. You earn the right to unbutton that top button. You earn the right to roll your sleeves up and blouse your boots. And that's how they take and they meld 80 to 100 recruits in every platoon as you go through boot camp into one team. And you're constantly drilling, and drilling in the Marine Corps is marching. Learn to march as one. And by the time that platoon graduates boot camp, you'll have 80 to 100 privates out there marching on what they call the grinder, which is the pavement parade field. And it sounds like one giant private marching. All the boots are in sync. Whenever the rifles are moved, it's one loud noise. It's an amazing thing to witness. And I come from, you know, every generation of my family's been in the military since we came here from Germany, been in every war. And lots of Marines in there. And it's just something that gets passed down, and the pride, it's just something I can't explain. But that's how they meld a group of young men together from all over this country and from other countries. I had a couple privates from San Salvador in my platoon in boot camp, and one from Puerto Rico. So it's an amazing thing to watch.
So you mentioned one of the things that you guys do is the roadside sandwich sale, the roadside grill.
Yeah.
What other kinds of fundraisers throughout the year do you have?
That, Lloyd, is actually our only fundraiser, and it's so successful that that's the way we can do that. And we're able to help the VFW have the Breakfast with Santa, which we just had a few weeks ago, which is a free meal. Santa Claus comes, and Mrs. Claus, and they come in, they can get a free breakfast, hot breakfast, and it's open to anyone. There's no criteria. We are big donors to the quilt program that Georgia Green, So Personal here in Atlanta, runs. And I think I can't remember how many quilts they sent to Father Lively.
My goodness, it was in the hundreds.
Being an active military chaplain, they grouped these together, her group of ladies, and I can't remember what that quilt, but she's going to punch me in the nose when I see her. She's, you know, her family's they're third generation Marines, but they make these patriotic quilts, and they send them to Father Lively, and he hands them out at the hospital. And I think he's in
Germany.
Is he at Landstuhl right now?
Yes, he's assigned to Washington D.C., but he goes to Landstuhl.
Let's send a local greeting out to Father Jeff Lively. He's missed. He's serving his country well in his new position with the military and with the church. Jeff Lively was a nice man. I respected him.
Yes, sir.
So any of you write him a Christmas card, tell him old Bill said hi.
Father Lively, of course, now is a full colonel.
Full bird colonel.
Yeah, he's going to retire nicely.
Yes, he will, and deservedly so.
Yes.
Deservedly so.
The other thing I want to point out before we forget, the Marine Corps League was instrumental in getting all the service medallions, magnetic medallions that will go on the doors of the hearses as a military veteran is carried to the cemeteries. that's something I thought was very important for people to see as their hearse is traveling on its way to the various cemeteries, that person in that hearse is recognized as a veteran. And I have to say, Bill, that anybody that raised his hand and took the oath is an alumnus of the DD 214 group, because when you raised your hand, we all took the same oath. It is true that the Marines are a little sticky about things, and I've been accused of Marines being like dogs marking their territory. That's true, we do. But we're very cognizant of the fact that everybody that raised their hands and took that oath is deserving of what we do.
October the 12th, 1942, old Bill Gossett raised his hand in the Armory building over at the University of Illinois campus. I enlisted then, so I had to go in. And the reason I mentioned that, the only reason I mentioned it, I took my hand down and I tell you the guy's name, Captain McClintock was his name, and he said to me after it was all said and done, "Well, son, you're ours now."
You're ours now.
And when I reported at Fort Sheridan later on, I found out what the gentleman meant. "Well, son, you're ours now," and I remember that vividly. Now it's 1942. Think of that.
But we do lots of little things in the community, to get back to you here, Lloyd. And one of the things that I'm very proud of that was a little mislabeled, the old AMVETS Veterans Park on Union Street.
Yes.
The AMVETS in Lincoln went defunct. Mr. Hawk passed away, and
Hawk was involved. He was really involved in that.
A good man, good family. It's kind of fell into disrepair, been vandalized several times, and we took it under our wing several years ago. And Sergeant Major Dennis here made a plan to put flagpoles up with each of the service flags on it. A group of Marines, with the help of some Boy Scouts, Mike Downen, Gene Hickey and Marcia, Owen Eaton,
and Joe Shaler,
of course, Joe and Melanie were involved, of course, like he is in all the veterans causes, and they completely removed all the bricks because they were starting to settle a little bit. It really wasn't put together well, the engineering of it. Mike kind of re-engineered how it should go together. They removed all the bricks, cleaned them, put them back in place, and naturally when they did that, they didn't go back in the same place. So recently we had an Eagle Scout that had an Eagle Scout project that made a new directory. So if you've been to that park and you can't find your brick, try the new directory. Should tell you right where it's at. But it's turned out beautiful. There was a new sign made and placed. The sign was starting to rot and fall apart. And lighting was changed up there, and it just, if you go by there now, it's Owen Eaton keeps the manicured. Gene and Marcia place the flowers in the spring and remove them in the fall. It just, you drive by that in the evening with the lighting and everything, and the flags are just moving in the breeze. It's a beautiful thing.
The lighting was as a result of Jim Harnacke sitting next to me, who works for Ameren.
Well, I got to give Ameren credit. They, at my request, they called in a few markers and they changed the old mercury vapor light out to an LED light, which gives.
I'm proud to have 4 stones there. Myself and my brother, and our uncle. It was World War I. And my brother's daughter. She's a captain in the Air Force. So there's 4 of us. So that makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, my family, we've got several there. My son Marine, my brother Marine, myself, my father, Navy man, Herman Ewell, our great uncle, my father's first cousin, who was a Marine on Iwo Jima. So we've got several bricks up there as well. And there are some spaces left. Not a lot. Gene would know exactly how many are left because he's kind of overseeing the brick when they get a brick.
I think Jim is a little less than 100.
But there are spaces for bricks. So I'll put that out there. If you still want a brick, contact us, and I'll put you in contact with Gene. And we'll
648-5510. This is your last couple of minutes. You have a chance to talk with Bill Dennis and/or Jim Harnacke, representatives of our Marine Corps League, which is an important military organization in this community. All of our military organizations are, each and every one in their own right, are important, but some are a little more active than others. and that's because they're younger.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that. This fellow sitting next to me is one of our oldest ones, and I'll tell you what, he's very active. So, but we're very proud of that. A lot of us are dual and triple members of the Legion, like myself. Others that are members of the Legion, the VFW, and the Marine Corps League.
But Jim, you're also on the board of the VAC.
Right.
I'm the vice chairman of the
But
VAC.
like Bill Dennis likes to say, when they give him a little guff out at the Legion about wearing his Marine Corps cover when he's in his Legion outfit, we're Marines first. Yeah. Well, we help everyone, but we're Marines first. So.
The basic training that a Marine endures, and I think that's probably a good adjective, is a lot different than we had in the Air Corps. My basic training was on the beaches of Miami Beach in Florida. The government
Terrible assignment.
terrible assignment. It was hard going. The government took over those hotels down there.
Could you compare that to Okinawa?
What Marines call the Rock.
No, I couldn't even spell Okinawa in those days. But the government took over those hotels, and those were our barracks. I was in the Army probably 3 months before I was ever in a barracks.
That's something. But again, Bill, that was during a period of time where the World War II was getting cranked up, and those facilities weren't.
They did what they had to do.
You bet they did.
Sure did.
My next barracks was the current Conrad Hilton, which was the old Stevens Hotel on South Michigan in Chicago. I went to the Army Air Corps radio school there. And
Well, those were nice surroundings also.
Yeah.
yeah.
Back then they were nice surroundings. Today, not so much. But
Jim Harnacke and Bill Dennis, we appreciate your time with us this morning, gentlemen. A little reminiscing, probably talking a little bit too much. Hope we didn't bore you out there too much, folks. But when you see these gentlemen, give them a civilian salute. Jim Harnacke and Bill Dennis, thank you very much, gentlemen.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.